Thank you for joining me. Chapter 1. A gentle breeze whisked through the Altair forest, brushing the leaves as it passes through. On any normal year, this wind would have been cool and bring the welcoming hints of cooler weather. But this year, like the last 5 years, is different. Rather than the gentle whisk of green leaves rustling, this year it brings the scratchy rasp of dead leaves. The gentle breeze picks up speed as it goes down the slopes into the Dragon's Tongue Valley, gathering dust as the momentum picks up. It crosses the fields of Moreau, which not too many years ago was lush farmland, but the 5-year drought has devastated this land. Once filled with numerous and proud farmers, the fields are now sparse and speckled with abandoned houses. The wind blows across the fields, touching the sweat-glistened back of Vinz Alstian, his well-muscled frame shivering ever so slightly at the touch of the wind. "I've made 70 bales today, Pa," Vinz exclaimed as he triumphantly put down his sigh with just a tinge of pride. "What's that, my boy?" Vin's father, Marcus, replied. Vinz looked up at his father, slightly squinting in the sun. He had always been impressed with his father. For a man of 50 years, he had an impressive frame, wide shoulders, strengthened from countless hours of carrying wheat and pushing carts. His father had won the arm wrestling competition in Two Forks Village for as long as Vinz could remember. But at this moment, Vinz could see a flash of concern across his father's face, a pained look, quickly covered up with a facade of being thoughtful. 70 bales, Vinz said, this time with a little cracking of hesitation in his voice. "And I did 85. That makes 20 less than last crop," Marcus said in a soft voice, his eyebrows bunched in worried contemplation. Vinz remembered that look. It was the way he looked when Vin's mother passed of boiling disease just 4 seasons ago. A knot developed in the pit of his stomach at the thought. "Mud-brained farmer, quit thinking about it," he thought as he rubbed his temple in a vain attempt to soothe the memory. "Well, nothing to it. We just have to go to town early and sell what we have," exclaimed Marcus. With a jump at the sudden interruption of thought, Vinz took a moment to hear what his father had said. "Town! Yeah. Oh, yes! Oh, town, yes! We should go into town!" A sheepish grin touching his lips. Marcus noticed the grin, and with a slightly cocked head and a bit of mock sternness in his voice, we have work to do in town. But you may have a bit of time to go see..." "Ilana!" piped up Vinz, the grin turning from sheepish to downright silly. "Ah, yes, that's her name. But don't let chasing her apron strings distract you from work," Marcus said, waving a single pointed muscular finger in Vin's face. "No, sir, I won't," he said as he scrambled to find his footing. "I'll hitch the carriage and load the bales," Vin said as he was already in motion back to the barn. "Don't rush, my son. That's how accidents happen." But his father's voice was drowned out by distance as Vinz rushed with excitement to ready the cart for town. "Town!" he thought, the excitement welling up. "Maybe I can get some sweet rolls from Mr. Austin. Oh, and I should take my boots to be repaired, and her." He stopped for a second, all excitement replaced by anxiety. "I will talk to her this time," he convinced himself. He could remember the first time he saw her. She wore a blue and white dress, and her and Bobby Yeldon were picking dough flowers in the field. "Of course, that's also the day Ilana saw me trip over my own fool feet," he mumbled under his breath. As he got to the barn door, he stopped and looked longingly at the house. A sturdy home it is indeed, with large planks of Bratleth wood. A pretty penny they cost, but Mom loved the reddish color, and in the evening sun the red shined a dull but inviting, warm red. It had a thick roof, one that Vince had replaced 2 rafters on just last spring. The house is clean and well kept, But since Mom died, it started feeling less and less like home. Ugh, you mug-brained fool! Why must you always think of sad things? He berated himself aloud. With a shake of his head, he entered the barn. Town, he said, the excitement back in his voice. Speedily, he passed the rows of tools, meticulously placed in their own spots. Maybe there will be a bard in the tavern, or a traveler with news of a far-off land, he thought as his mind wandered to the stories he has heard. Almost as being possessed, he went about the task of hitching the wagon, while his mind was off on an adventure. Countless hours he'd spend in the tavern, listening to the stories of travelers and the bards. There's Jaylee the True with her magic bow. She has never missed a shot. Many times Vince had imagined himself some unnamed partner on a quest with Jaylee the True. His wandering mind would take him to the lands and places he has only heard in stories and in tales. The dragons in Northreach. Of course, Bobby Yeldon says dragons aren't real. Humph! He snorted. What does Bobby Yeldon know about anything? Except how to fix boots, he said with a little chuckle in his voice. Without even realizing it, or how it even happened, the wagon was hitched, and he was ready to go to town. He removed the door plank and pushed open the large double doors of the barn. His dad was approaching the barn, but something seemed to be slowing him down. You all right, Pa? Yes, it's nothing, son. Let's go, Marcus said as he shrugged his shoulders and gave the most convincing smile he could muster. I get these feelings. And then quietly, almost as if to not be heard, the sins of my past come back to haunt me? But Vince heard it. What does he mean by that? He thought. But he knew better than to push the issue. If his father wanted him to hear, he would have said it louder. Sun's lower than I wanted. We'll have to get a room at the tavern, Marcus said absent-mindedly as he surveyed the woods in the distance. Vince had the feeling his father was expecting something, and it sure wasn't any of Mrs. Waltham's sweet rolls. He had never seen this kind of tense in his father. His arms looked as if he were ready to spring into action, and his right hand was absently grasping for something on his right hip that just wasn't there. If Vince didn't know any better, he would have thought his father was reaching for a sword that didn't exist. But his father had never even held a sword. Has he? Foolish mud brain, Vince thought. My father's a great man, but he isn't a hero from one of those stories. Hop on, boy, Marcus said with a head gesture indicating the cart. They both clambered on and began the hour-long journey to the village. You feel that, son? Marcus said in a strange, low, guttural tone Vince had never heard before. It somehow commanded respect and pushed urgency. What is it? Vince replied in the lowest tone he could manage and still be heard. It's the air. It feels thick, dangerous. How can the air be dangerous? Not the air that's dangerous. The air brings warnings to who can sense it, boy. Vince's mind was racing. He had never seen his father act so strangely. The air? How can the air be dangerous? And it didn't feel any thicker. What is his father talking about? Never you mind, lad. Let's just get to town, muttered his father. But the quick darting of his father's eyes showed that the worry was still there. The dirt road seemed somehow darker now, the trip longer than normal. Now my father has me seeing ghosts. If Bob and Yeldon saw me now, he'd clock me on the head for sure, thought Vince. Oh, but still, let the light speed our journey all the same. What did you say, son? Oh, nothing, Pa, Vince replied. He didn't even know he had said that out loud. I really am a mud-brained coward. Alana would have a great laugh at me now, he thought. And with that, the thought he and with that thought he mustered every bit of bravado and shot up, sitting straight, and pushed his shoulders back. Marcus gave him a sideways glance and a slight chuckle, then sat straight himself and pushed his own chest out. Vince couldn't help but marvel at the figure before him. If he thought really hard, he could almost envision his father as a soldier from one of those stories he's always heard bards sing about. Suddenly, Marcus erupted in full belly laughter. Stunned, Vince looked at his father like a doe-eyed deer caught in torchlight. Seeing Vin's expression, his father's laughter got somehow even more robust. Seeing his father laugh like that had brought back all the feelings of love he had for his dad. Slowly a smile creeped across Vin's lips, until the laughter burst forth. It really felt great to laugh. The slow trop of the horse's hooves began to hypnotize Vince as he slowly drifted into a not-quite-sleep state. As he drifted, he thought of the adventures he had heard of, thoughts of knights and glory in battle drifting through his brain. He floated above the lands only seen by legends. Then before him he saw a great battle. What battle from tales told is this? He thought. He felt drawn to the battle, slowly getting closer. It seems, he started to think before interrupted by a distinct smell of burning wood and something else. Some familiar, horrible smell he couldn't quite place. Slowly he drifted closer to the battlefield. That smell! What is it? Suddenly he realized what that smell was. He would smell it before the fall festivals behind Old Man Grundy's butcher shop. Burning flesh. But this was somehow different. The same acrid smell of cow flesh burning, but also mixed with a stickly sweet smell. Closer to the battle he got. He was only perhaps just a few heads above the mass of bodies and armor when he realized the battle had stopped. The soldiers were all staring at him, not in fear or amazement, but in anger. Down he floated. He scrambled to stop his descent, but it was like he was being pulled down. From the mass of soldiers stepped forth a cloaked figure. The cloak appeared to suck in all light around it, and the face was not visible. Instead, it looked like a dark void, a lost place where there is no existence. A strange, instinctive, and familiar fear washed across Vince. He felt as though he was caught in a fisherman's net. Struggling as hard as he could, the invisible bonds drew him closer to the cloaked figure, his fear mounting with each second. Suddenly, the realization hit him. The smell is burning human flesh. Panic now overcame him. He tried screaming, but his mouth filled with air rushing in. A thin, steel-like hand came from beneath the cloak and pointed at Vince. "Wake up," he thought. "Oh, light, please wake up." The cloaked figure stepped forward, bringing up a sword in one smooth, almost fluid motion. Forward it came. The panic in Vince was almost at blood-boiling state. The sword was now just inches from his body. The cloaked figure uttered a noise that sounded more like crows and wolves trying to sing. "Wake up, wake up! Oh, dear light, wake!" The figure drew back the sword to make ready a piercing strike. In the flash of sunlight, Vince could see the blade, dark as dried blood, and somehow almost liquid. He could see the blade begin its forward motion, aimed straight at his heart. Vince was frozen, held in place by whatever light-forsaken creature this was. He felt the blade touch his skin, the tip starting to pierce it. It was burning hot. He got a faint smell of his own burning flesh, when quicker than a blink of an eye time stopped. He could feel a rage beginning to flow through him, the hot blade bringing some strange, familiar feeling of anger, as if he had been here before. The anger turned into a heat of its own, enveloping his entire body. He instinctively brought forth his hand, and a column of burning white hot shot forth from his hand, forming a sword blade. The cloaked figure began to move, at first almost imperceptible, but gaining speed. "You should not be here," Vince heard a voice say. At least, he thought it was a voice. It sounded like human words mixed with the sound of cats scratching at a tree. With a strange circular motion, a bright light emitted from the cloaked figure. Vince could feel himself being hurled away. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 1. I invite you to join me right here where we left off in Chapter 2, perhaps tomorrow. I thank you for your time.